Hi. So this week we are doing a story that I wrote a while ago, actually. I was going to film a reading of it, and then the stuff happened with the burnout in December of 2021, so I couldn't film it. But I want to film it now. So this one is a piece of fan fiction. It's multiple chapters. It is called Old Friends, and it merges the Jacksepticeye fandom with the Bendy and the Ink Machine fandom because Jack voiced a character called Sean Flynn in Bendy and the Ink Machine. So I have the fandom has this idea that maybe JJ and Sean Flynn were friends. So I wrote a story about that, and I hope that you enjoy it. So let's get started. I wonder sometimes, JJ signed one evening, catching Robbie's attention. Wonder what, Jamie? The dapper man sighed, looking down before signing again. I had a friend in my time. I wonder what happened to him. Chase glanced at JJ, eyes wide in curiosity. We could help you find him, he suggested, if you want. JJ frowned, considering his choice before nodding slowly. I don't know if I want to find out, but it could be nice to know, he trailed off, lost in thought. No. What? Robbie asked, curious. Know what happened to him after he moved to America, after I left my time? He paused. Animation companies. Are they still around? Chase nodded, eyes bearing a question. Can you help me find out what happened to Joey's U Studios? He looked determined as he continued. Help me find Sean Flynn. Chapter 2, a flashback. It's just a manufacturing job, Jameson. I could do it from here. Jameson sighed, turning the page in his novel. Head up the factory, Sean. You'll have to stay there. Then what will I do with the apartment? Sean frowned, tapping his foot impatiently. You could always get a new roommate. It isn't that hard to find people. It's hard to find people like you, Jameson stated, closing his book and standing up. People like you who laugh and smile and care about people like me. He stood in front of his friend, eyes soft. Without you there, I'd rather live on the streets. Sean placed a gentle hand on Jameson's shoulder, looking into his eyes. It's a month-long trial. If things go wrong, I'll come right back. Promise. Jameson nodded, a watery smile stretching beneath his mustache. All right. 1 month. Chapter 3, present day. Who was Sean Flynn? Chase asked the next morning. JJ stifled a yawn, then sat at the table with his hot mug of tea. Sean and I have been friends for as long as I can remember, he signed, lifting his hat to scratch his head. We were roommates until he got a new job in America. What job, Jamie? The zombie asked, slipping into the seat beside the dapper man. He made toys. I used to help him paint toy cars and the faces of dolls. When he moved, he brought some of my contributions with him. Chase set his coffee down, then sat opposite JJ. We could look into employee records of his workplace to start, he offered. I know you mentioned a company last night. What was it called? JJ frowned, trying to remember through his morning fog. I know it was an animation studio. He smiled as his memory came back to him. It was called Joey Ju Studios. Chapter 4, flashback. You'll write as soon as you arrive, right? Sean smiled, rolling his eyes at the man with the bowler hat. I'll write. You realize the message will be delayed, right? I'll be okay, he answered, adjusting the bag on his shoulder. Jameson nodded, lips drawn tight as he glanced to the side. If the job doesn't work out, come back. We can find you another one, maybe closer to home, he said, avoiding Sean's gaze and removing his hat. Here. Sean handed Jameson his brown flat cap, smiling at his friend's confused face. To remember me. If I come back, I'll retrieve it. If not... He was cut off by the dapper's arms wrapping round his neck. Don't die in America. Write me often. Come back if things go wrong. He let Sean go, wiping stubbornly at his eyes. That's all I ask. Sean smiled, then turned as the final boarding call sounded. He gave Jameson one last hug before turning to leave. Take care of you, he called, before Jameson lost him in the crowd. Chapter 5. Apparently Joe Studios closed down mysteriously, Chase read from his computer, shoulders sagging as he saw JJ's face. Sorry, James, I can't find any more information about Sean. How did the studio close? JJ asked, biting his lip in concern. Chase looked at his computer again, frowning. It doesn't say. There are some employee statements though. He scrolled down, leaning forward with a furrowed brow. Something about supernatural occurrences, unfair work hours, verbal abuse. Does Sean have a testimony? JJ signed after tapping the table for attention. Yes, there's a recording here. Do you want to hear it? JJ nodded, leaning his elbows on the table to hear the recording. Chase clicked a button, and the voice of JJ's best friend sounded through the speakers. I don't be seeing what the big deal is. So what if... Stop, JJ signed, standing and leaving the room. Chapter 6. So what if I went and painted some of those bendy dolls with a crooked smile? That's for sure no reason for Mr. Jew to be flying off the handle at me, and if he really wants to be so helpful, he could be telling me what I'm doing with this warehouse full of that angel whatchamacallit. Not a scrap of that be selling. Probably have to melt it all down to be rid of it all. Anyway, Jameson, hope you're doing well. Jameson put the letter down with a frown. If Sean was being abused for his humor, maybe he should go help him. Dated a month ago, he murmured, looking at the letter again. Are you better now, Sean? He looked at the boxes around him, hoping that his letter telling his friend he was moving had reached Sean. I await your letter, he told the paper, turning off the lights and heading to bed. Chapter 7. James? The knock on the door was met with silence, and Chase's sigh sounded through the wood. Look, I know this may be hard, but I want you to know I'm still looking for Sean. I'll come back if I find anything new. JJ sighed, sitting on his bed with his hat in his hands. If there was anything he could have taken to this decade with him, it would have been Sean's cap. The cap that had never been retrieved. He wondered if the hat would have been retrieved. Would Sean have ever come back? What had happened at the studio? JJ stared at his hat for days. Chapter 8. Jackson. The voice crackled over the speakers, and Jameson stood up quickly. I am Jameson Jackson. Do you have any news? He asked the woman at the counter, who sighed and sifted through her papers. No letters from your friends, sir. Nothing has come in from America in months, unfortunately. Thank you, Jameson said, taking his mail and leaving the building. He hadn't heard from Sean since the letter about the toys. There hadn't even been any news from the studios. Jameson felt guilty. He had told Sean that he would be fine, but now his friend had gone silent. What if something had happened over there? He had washing at home, waiting to be folded. It was probably better to preoccupy his mind than worry about Sean. Jameson headed home. Chapter 9. James, can I come in? The somber voice of the father made JJ stand, walking to the door and opening it. Chase sat on JJ's desk chair, taking his cap off and looking at his feet. James, I found out what happened to Sean, he started. You might want to sit down. Chase and JJ walked through the rows of stone, searching for a specific name. Here it is, Chase called, brushing leaves away from one specific stone. JJ stared at the engraving, reading the words carved into the grey. Sean Flynn. Died 1983. Beloved employee and friend to some. I'm sorry you never got to see Sean again, the father stated, placing a hand on JJ's shoulder gently. It's all right, JJ signed in response, crouching before the headstone. At least we found him. Do you think he was happy? Chase asked, crouching beside JJ. I hope he was, the dapper man answered, staring at the stone. Are you all right? Chase queried, noticing JJ wiping his eyes. I wish I was there, JJ signed. I wish I'd been able to see him again. When Chase and JJ returned home, the dapper man headed straight to his room, closing the door behind him. Jamie? Robbie crept into JJ's room, sitting on the ground beside his bed. 2 hands emerged from the blankets, signing to the zombie. I just missed my friend, Robbie. He's gone. I can't see him anymore. The zombie nodded, thinking. Tell me about Sean? JJ hesitated. We first met in school. He was being bullied. Chapter 10. Flashback. Bullying warning. Sean Flynn, clothespin, the children chanted, causing the small boy to cower in fear. Hey Sean, why don't you go back to your farm? Jameson was a small boy, but his voice and heart were bigger. When he heard the children bullying the new kid, he couldn't just ignore them. Hey, stop picking on him, he called, running over to the group. Why? He's not stopping us, the kids replied, and Jameson helped Sean to stand. Because I'm stopping you. Leave him alone. The kids began to reply, then thought better of it and left. Jameson walked Sean away, sitting with him on a bench. Why did you help me? Jameson smiled. Because I help people, and I wanted to. My name is Sean. I'm Jameson. It's nice to meet you.